start. I thought maybe we could introduce ourselves to begin with. I know some of you all know each other, but since you're a new region, it might help for everyone to know who's who and who some of the coordinators are. So I am Shannon Bolt, and I'm the program coordinator for the Salish Sea Guillemot Network Pigeon Guillemot Breeding Survey, which is a mouthful. And I'm sitting in Olympia, Washington. I'm at the very southern end of Puget Sound. And so I also survey down here in the South Sound region. I've been surveying guillemots since 2019. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I'm glad you're all here this evening. It's a fun project, and I think you are all going to enjoy watching the guillemots. So let's see, maybe we should start with Blythe and Fiona, since you guys are helping coordinate the efforts up there.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. I'm Blythe. I'm one of the coordinators. I'm also supporting Birds Canada with coordinating kind of the whole region. So I'll be speaking with Remy a bit more about what that role looks like. But I'm co-organizing with Fiona and Annika on our colony here on the Sunshine Coast. We're surveying one colony at this time, Fiorni Point, which is a decent sized colony on a beautiful cliff face. And then we're doing some scouting this summer as well to identify some possible future survey sites. So I'll pass it along to Fiona. Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Fiona. It's great to see the BC folks. Yeah, super excited to be organizing and yeah, I'll pass it to Annika. Oh, Annika, you're muted at this moment.
Hey, my name's Annika. Nice to meet everyone. I see a few familiar faces. I'm co-organizing with Blythe and Fiona for this project, and I'm pretty new to bird surveying, but it is very fun and exciting, and I'm very thankful to have so many great mentors and people to help me here. So thank you.
Yay. Yay.
I'll pass it on to Grace.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grace. I live in Sechelt, and I'm going to be working with the survey for the Sunshine Coast. And we had a great trip out on Saturday when we went to have a look at the cliff and try and figure out how on earth we're going to recognize burrows up there. Well, we'll get it. But there were definitely guillemots there, and they were definitely disappearing into the cliff face, so that was all very positive.
Sure. Lynette, do you want
Hi,
to talk?
I'm also helping on the Sunshine Coast project monitoring, and I'll be a substitute. And right now, I'm at my daughter's place in Kelowna to see my grandchildren and their families. So, but I'm glad I can get in on Zoom.
Yeah.
And
Glad you could make it.
Jim, I'm also here. I run the boat sometimes and just do what Lynette tells me to.
Yes, and thank you both for taking us out on Saturday. It was really amazing to get out there.
it was fun.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to go across my screen, all of the pictures I have here. Trisha, I'll let you go next.
Sure. That's great. Thanks, Shannon. Trisha Beatty, and I'm phoning in from Bowen Island, which is in Howe Sound. And I am on the board of Birds Canada and also a volunteer with the Middle Island Stewardship Team. As the vice chair of that group, I'm really keen on trying to see if we can do a survey in years to come because there are probably hundreds of guillemots that nest around Middle Natch Island. It's just a matter of the practicalities of how one can safely survey them because it's quite an exposed island. So I'm really keen on trying to get some information tonight to see if this is a possibility for future years.
Sure.
And on Bowen Island, we see a few pigeon guillemots, but I don't think there's any nesting here.
Okay. you definitely have some interesting challenges up there in BC that we don't experience in the lower part of the Salish Sea. So part of this year we'll be figuring out what works and what doesn't and what we think might be possible in the future. So be excited to see. How about Phyllis? And you're muted. Do you want to unmute?
Bob and I live here on Gabriola Island in BC, and we're working with Vicki Scott. We're volunteering to help her
Yes.
and her team.
Well, welcome. Glad you could be here. And how about, let's see, Aaron Baumeister, probably our newest volunteer.
I'm sticking the mute.
Oh, you're muted, Aaron.
Okay, I got it. Hello. I also live on Gabriola Island. We have a little Gabriola team now, apparently.
It's growing.
And and it's literally my first day. Somebody at a farmer's market, I guess, met some people who had just gotten back from doing a survey, and they mentioned my name because I am a boat captain and am now really getting into my birding era. I got a telephoto lens last year, and I've been getting really into bird diving, and I love participating in citizen science. I already do quite a bit with marine mammals, so this is an exciting thing to be a part of.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy that we ran into your friend at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
It was great to just make that connection. So we're happy that you're here this evening. Liam, I think I'll hand it over to you. Liam and
Hey everyone, my name's Liam Reagan. I'm here with BC Nature. I'm here with Maddie and Steph over here on the other couch.
Hi.
We're calling in from Victoria. We'll be working on the Ogden Point site, which I think, Shan, you were just explaining while we were punching in there. It sounds like a little less naturally spectacular than a lot of the sites you all are working with, but we get to see lots of cool boats, and sometimes the birds land on them. And yeah, I hope you all can come down and see our strange naval guillemots at some point.
Thank you, Liam. How about Chrissy? Is it Zembor?
Zembor, yeah, good guess. I joined a couple minutes late, so I assume we're just doing intros.
Yeah.
I am very new, and I was introduced by Blythe and Fiona to this work. I'm based on the Sunshine Coast, traditional territories of the Shishal and Squamish folks, and I am an aquatic scientist. I work for the province, and so I'm just looking to have some more opportunity to be involved in local, cool, interesting work, especially on the ocean, which is one of my passions. And because my work is all over BC, so it's nice to be involved in something a little bit closer to home. So not really sure what I'm signing up for exactly, but I'm very trusting it's going to be a ton of fun. So nice to meet everyone.
Awesome. Nice to meet you. So glad you're here. And how about Mari Petsneck?
Hi there. Yeah, I'm just don't know anything about this project, so I just jumped into the opportunity of just hearing what's going on, and I'm hoping maybe, I could contribute in some way. Not sure about the schedules and everything, but yeah, I'm just here to find out what's going on.
Okay, well, you're in the right place. Hopefully I can fill in some of those details today. What region are you in of BC?
I'm in Seychelles.
Seychelles, okay.
Yeah, Mari's on the Sunshine Coast, and she's an amazing photographer. So I actually reached out to her
awesome.
yesterday or the day before and asked for some photographs, and said what we were up to, and she was really excited. So I'm so glad you're here, Mari.
Oh, that's awesome. I love photographers. I like to take photos myself, and it helps us tell the story through the season. So I'm kind of relying on people that are out there on the boat with their cameras to share some photos and stories that I can share with everyone else, especially with you guys just coming on this season. It'll be great to be able to share that with everyone. So, all right, I guess I'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, I just want to say again how excited I am to have BC joining the project. And I've just been overwhelmed with just how motivated and dedicated you all are to the birds and to the environment. And it was really, yeah, it just really buoyed me up when I was there this weekend just to feel the energy and the excitement for the survey. So, really happy that you guys are joining the network. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen. So this is going to be a rehash for some of you who were in last week's training. Oops, let's see if I can move that. I can't see the buttons. Okay, there we go. So this will be a rehash for some of you. I tried to shake it up a little bit though. Oh, and I apologize. The sun decided to come in like a light beam in my eye, but we're going to press on. Okay, there we go. Oops. There we go. All right, so the plan for this evening, I'm just going to give you some background on the survey, our history and data use, an overview of how the survey works. We'll take a look at the data sheet and how to fill that out. And then because BC is primarily going to rely on boats for surveying, we'll talk about our boat survey protocol specifically. So that's new for this training. And then I'm going to take you for a walk through our survey toolbox, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. So I love this little photo here. This was a guy that was taken actually over the winter time. He was hanging out at the Langley Pier, and I just love his sassiness there. He's telling the pigeon what he thinks. All right, so a little bit of history about the network. The survey actually started on Whidbey Island over 20 years ago by Francis Wood and Dr. Phyllis Kind, and they were supported by the Whidbey Audubon Society. And Whidbey Audubon still is our major supporter and funder to this day. And Frances Wood is also still with the survey. She's my mentor and also the director of SSGN. And just to give you an idea what this looks like, of course, BC now adds this really large section to be covered. So there's a lot of potential there. But all of those little bird icons, those represent colonies that are currently surveyed in Puget Sound. And then still, oh, what's the thumbs down, Liam? Or maybe that was an accident.
No, I'm just joking because it's not in Canada yet.
Okay. So then just taking a closer look. So some of the areas where I was this weekend doing some site visits, we have the Sunshine Coast, Fearney Point will be one of our survey areas, and then Valdez Island in the Gulf Islands, and also the Victoria Pier. And I know there might be a couple of potential colonies up north, but I believe this year we'll be piloting those three main colonies there. All right, so this is a huge effort. We have quite a few funders and sponsors involved. And so you can see all of these different organizations contribute to the network. It's really a sort of, as you know, in conservation, it's all hands on deck. So no one group could do this on their own. Fish and Wildlife provides our database, and they also give us some guidance in our protocol. We also work with the University of Washington quite a bit, and many of our partners here contribute also financially to SSGN. Oh, and I also meant to mention, so each region is independently coordinated as well. And so these sponsors are usually attached to one of those regions that you saw on that map earlier. And as I mentioned, it's a large group effort. So last year we had 243 beach volunteers and 65 colonies surveyed across the network. So you can see that added up to almost 5,300 volunteer hours, which is actually a conservative number because there's a substantial amount of coordination that goes on behind the scenes that doesn't get captured on the data sheet. So the effort is really much larger than that. Okay, so why do we survey? It's interesting. When Frances started this survey over 20 years ago, I don't think she had any idea what it was going to become, or even that the guillemot would become an official vital sign marine bird indicator species for Puget Sound. So they were actually designated by the state of Washington as an indicator species because they winter in the Salish Sea year-round and also breed in the area. And so they are really connected to the marine ecosystem. And by surveying them, we sort of get a window into the health of the ecosystem. They're also feeding on benthic prey as well as forage fish. So if we were to see a trend with the guillemots, that would definitely tell us that something's wrong with our marine ecosystem. And we're also hoping to help answer questions about population dynamics, particularly where they are related to environmental change. And we want to connect people with the environment. So this survey has been an amazing way to get people on the beach, on the water, and feeling connected not only with the water itself, the ecosystem, but to the birds. We find that most folks that are out surveying, they really become attached and bonded to their colonies. And so, yeah, it's amazing what it does for the soul and for people. And then we can go out and spread that message to our community, let people know what's happening out there. And of course, we love our birds. So that's another reason. But now that BC is joining, I think we can also answer some questions about differences in the populations over spatial differences. So what do the guillemots look like in the northern part of the Salish Sea? And then maybe answering questions as to why there could be those differences. So I think this could add another layer to these questions that we're trying to answer. And let's see, I see that there's something in the chat. Oh, okay. Just want to make sure I'm not missing any questions. Oops. Okay. Oh, goodness. Okay, and then how is our data used? So to date, we do inform the population data with Washington Fish and Wildlife as part of their tracking of the indicator species trends. We also do regional reporting to our funders and volunteers and community. Last year, we participated in a Navy environmental impact assessment for their base that's on Whidbey Island. They have an excessive noise issue with some of their growler jets, so we were able to do an analysis to see if there were any differences with the guillemot colonies that were near the base versus far away from the base. And I mentioned earlier that the University of Washington, Dr. Sarah Converse's lab has been using our data to help build population models. And then we also hope to answer future research questions. So there's really so much value in having this long-term data set, and the data's there, it's ready to use. And really, there are so many different things that we could do with it. There's a lot of potential there. So we're hoping that we will continue to find organizations, and maybe even Birds Canada itself can do some additional analyses with our data. All right, so let's dig into the survey. This is an example of a bluff that you might see down here. So very different from your bluffs. So the survey season runs roughly June through August, and this is because of the birds' timeline. So the birds are dictating this schedule. It starts the first week of June. This year, we're giving folks the option of starting a little bit earlier because the first week of June is actually somewhat late. I think we have some colonies in previous years that have seen prey deliveries already in the first week. And then it runs for a minimum of 10 weeks. And again, it's dictated by what the birds are doing. So once their breeding behavior comes to a stop, then we would stop surveying. And we usually like to see 2 weeks with no activity at the end of the survey season. So you can see this little guy in the photo. He's kind of looking crusty. He was taken towards the end of the season, and I believe that was a really late burrow visit in September sometime. That's unusually late, so he's already transitioning into his non-breeding plumage. All right, so I wanted to give you an idea of the timeline and why we set up the survey the way we do. We see guillemots, they start to come in towards their colony bluffs somewhere in the early spring. By April or May, they should all be coming in closer to the bluffs. Usually it's the males that come in first and then followed by females. And we believe that the non-breeders might come in even a little bit later. So we're looking at roughly 30 days of that happening. And then once they start their pair bonding and copulation, it takes about 10 days from the time of copulation for them to lay their eggs. So then around May, June timeframe, they'll be incubating the eggs. And one thing I wanted to mention about that, and something I was thinking about when we were visiting the colonies, is that you may, when you first get to your colony, you may see a flurry of activity when they're pair bonding and they're courting each other and they're mating. And then things might go really quiet. You'll have a lull in the activity and you might think something's wrong. We have a lot of surveyors that reach out, oh no, the activity just stopped. It's dead here. But it could be that the birds are just being quiet in their burrows and incubating eggs. So I would always anticipate that we'll have a few weeks where it's going to be really quiet at the colony, but the birds should still be there. There should be the non-breeders there. And then the mates actually switch out with incubation. So you will still have birds in the near shore near the colony. So it takes about 30 days of incubation before the chicks hatch. And then that's when provisioning begins. So the parents will begin delivering prey items to the chick. And this is where you sort of have a variable time span of prey deliveries that might be seen anywhere from 35 to 45 days. So we like to say maybe anywhere from 4 weeks on, we assume that a chick will fledge from a nest if a nest has seen feeding for at least 4 weeks. But you may see feeding to a burrow for up to 7 weeks. So, and then burrows can be on a different time schedule as well. So one burrow may start up at 1 week and then another burrow will start feeding the next week. So all of those things can equal a longer than 10-week season. So you could be looking at around 3 months and the pig are at the colony for 4 to 6 months. And then, of course, once the chicks fledge, those are two recent fledglings there in the bottom right. The activity really just ceases. It becomes very quiet. The guillemots are no longer near their bluff. So it's quite striking how quickly the activity just drops off. So this is just to give you an idea of prey delivery frequency and where the high point in the season is. You can see how it really sort of ramps up starting in early June. And then the peak is usually around the 3rd week of July is when we will see the largest number of prey deliveries. I'll be curious to see if BC is the same or similar, but we don't know yet. And then this is looking at the population numbers. So I mentioned to some of you that the population might build a little bit as we head into June. And this is a little bit misleading because it looks like we had 0 guillemots until May 28th. And that's not really true. This is reflective of when the survey started. So we had last year we had one colony that started back in April surveying. So they really didn't have very many birds then. And then the first week of surveying was actually June 4th. So that's why the population shot up like that. But then what's more important is looking at the end of the season, looking around August 13th or so, you can see how the population numbers just plummet. So it really dies off very quickly once they're finished feeding chicks. All right, so some survey day essentials. I mentioned at the last training that it doesn't really matter if you have a fancy pair of binoculars. And after visiting BC colonies, I want to sort of retract that statement and say that you probably do want a good pair of binoculars. They still don't need to be very expensive, but just make sure you have a decent pair of binoculars. It was a little tricky to see the birds very well. So although you have a good vantage point from the boat, I think it will help, and especially if there's some sun glare, to have good binoculars where you can really scan the water and those giant rocky cliffs that you had. So good binoculars. It helps to have a cell phone, not only for the time, but in case you have to communicate with anybody. This photo with the circles, this is a burrow map representing a burrow map. So everyone will want to have that so that you know how your burrows are going to be numbered. We have a data sheet. You probably want to have some sunscreen. I have this stool here, but that's only if you're sitting on the beach. So on a boat, that doesn't really apply. But also good warm clothing, a life vest. Did I forget anything? I think that's it, but you'll figure out once you start what kinds of things you really want to have on the beach with you. So just to look a little bit at this burrow map and how to create one of these. So again, this is one of our bluffs that we have here in the South Sound. It does not compare to what you have up there. But you want to take a photo. You can also draw a picture if you'd like. Some people prefer to do that. And then you can include landmarks in the photo. That way you know how to line it up with the bluff, especially if you have substitutes. It helps. And then you want to number the active burrows. So an active burrow is a burrow that has seen either a visit from a bird or a prey delivery. And you only want to use capital letters, no spaces, no symbols, and numbers as well are okay. And then here's, I took this at Ferny Point on the trip. So here's an example of how you might divide up a bluff. So when you have a really large bluff, it's helpful if you can divide it into sections and then assign different volunteers, a different volunteer to each section. It just makes it much easier to keep track of what the birds are doing. When you have a really large colony and there's a lot of activity, it can be really hard if everybody's trying to just watch all of the birds and all of the spaces. It's easy to miss something. So if everyone is sort of assigned to one section, it's just a much easier way to keep track of what the birds are doing. And then what you would do is you could number your burrows according to each section. So you might have burrow A1, A2, A3, C1, C2. And that way you know exactly where on the bluff the burrows are located, and it's easy for each surveyor to know which section and which burrows they're recording. So here's just sort of a close-up view. This is also from Ferny Point, and I just circled random cracks that could be burrows. And then just to give you examples of what are acceptable burrow names, some people do get really creative with their burrow names, but as long as you just have the 3 alphanumeric characters. And the reason that we do this is it's really easy to make a mistake in data entry. And let's say we had one that was like this burrow number 5 here, and then someone else might put B dot 5, someone else might put B dash 5, and in the database that looks like 3 different burrows. So just to try to not have errors, we ask everyone to just standardize the burrow naming. All right, so this is talking about how to count guillemots. And we have 3 basic methods. We kind of talked about that when I was up there this weekend with those who were on the boats. One is to have, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. So we're doing colony populations during our survey, and we're performing 3 snapshot counts of the birds. So the first one is going to be at the very beginning of the hour. That is when that's your start time. So you'll write on your data sheet your start time. That's when you do your first count. And then you'll do a population count at the middle and one at the end. And we're only counting guillemots that are associating with the bluff. And it's pretty obvious. I think those of you who were out with me this weekend saw that the birds that are part of a breeding colony, they're right up next to their bluff. So you don't want to count any guillemots that are out in the deeper waters or just passing through, just the ones that are interacting and congregating together. And then we're also recording information on the prey deliveries to the burrow and also no prey visits to the burrow. So no prey visits tell us when the birds might be attempting to breed. And it's also a good way to know which areas of the bluff that you need to keep an eye on for prey deliveries in the future. And then when they do start making the prey deliveries, you record the type of prey and the time of delivery. So here it looks like the bottom picture has a gunnel and the top one has a snake prickleback. I'll talk a little bit about this later, that these are both going to be called gunnels. All right, so what do we do when the birds are doing this? This trips people up sometimes. We have a bird that's kind of sitting in the mouth of the burrow and one that's on the ledge there. We call that ledge sitting. And we do not want to record birds that are ledge sitting. And we generally tell folks only record a burrow visit if they disappear completely inside the burrow. So if they're just sitting in the mouth, we're not counting that as well. But I would still put a circle on that on your map, and I would keep my eye on that spot because obviously they're using that burrow. All right, so Remy wanted me to touch on the fact that not all of the birds at the colony are breeding. So you'll be counting a certain number of birds. Let's say you have 30 birds. They won't all be paired up and breeding. So this is our data from, let's see, this is from 2021 to 2024. And you can see that the birds that we considered successfully breeding was about 30%, and the birds that were attempting to breed were anywhere from 40 to maybe 52%. So it's okay if just a few pairs are breeding out of your colony. It's expected that they won't all be using the burrows. There's a number of non-breeders. They don't actually start breeding until they're maybe 3 to 5 years old. So there are probably some subadults in the group. Okay, we also want to record information on disturbances. So these are just some examples of disturbances that you might see. People on the beach. And by the way, that's Frances Wood there in the foreground with the binoculars. She's the founder of the survey. Sometimes we get boaters that go through the colony and disturb the birds. But enemy number 1 is the eagle. And maybe also in BC, it could be a peregrine. We did see some peregrine falcons at Ferny Point. So usually it's a predator of some kind. They are also very highly disturbed when people are between them and their burrows. I don't think that's going to be a problem at your sites because you're not surveying from the beach. So hopefully it won't be people that will be the issue unless you have a boater that goes screaming through your colony while you're surveying. And then a disturbance, we define that as anything that causes the birds to change their behavior and react. So if an eagle flies over and nothing happens, we don't record the disturbance. We only write it down if the birds flee or dive or start screaming, anything that causes them to change what they're doing. And then it's over when the birds sort of go back to their usual behavior and start floating back into the colony. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about prey types. Gunnel is the prey that we see most often here in the South Sound. And it really depends on the region, but overall, this is the fish that they prefer to deliver to their chicks. And it's really recognizable because it hangs down like this sort of long ribbon or noodle. So it's pretty striking. And, you know, some folks are concerned that they won't be able to tell the difference in the prey. But once you see them flying in with a gunnel and it's hanging down like a noodle, you're going to know that's what it is. And just some more examples of gunnels. They come in all different colors. So don't be surprised if you see bright red or bright green. And then I mentioned this snake prickleback. So we realized several years ago that many of our gunnels were actually snake pricklebacks. And the problem is that sometimes it's hard to distinguish the two. And we have no way of knowing, you know, looking back over 20 years of data, how many of our fish were actually snake pricklebacks. So we don't expect volunteers to distinguish the difference. If you do, and actually you may start to recognize them pretty easily, but we lump these together with gunnels. They're gunnel-like. So just wanted to mention that in case you saw one and thought, well, that's not a gunnel. And then you might think to record it in the other category, but it's a gunnel. The other species that we see a lot of is the sculpin. And especially in the early season, when the chicks are small, you sometimes see them come in with very tiny sculpins. So you notice the shape is very much different. It kind of has this wider head and larger fins and then a skinny tail. So maybe sort of more like a triangle. And the great thing about the prey is you can see in this lower left photo, the birds almost always fly in and show it to you. They'll sit on the water for quite a bit with their prey. So hopefully you'll have a good chance to get a look at the prey and figure out what it is that they're holding. And I threw in a couple of extra other species just because we don't know what the prey types will be in BC waters. They could be very different from the composition that we see down here. You might see some forage fish, sort of these silvery sand lance type fish. Down in the lower right is a shiner perch. It has more of an oval shaped body. I have seen guillemots bring in shrimp before. And then we have a cod and an eel pout. I've never seen those fish down here in the South Sound, but I think on Whidbey Island they have a little more variety. So I'll be curious to know what you guys see, and maybe someone with the camera can get some great photos of different types of prey, especially if they're different from what we see down here. All right, so I just wanted to show you guys what, this is actually taken during a survey. I just wanted to show you what it looks like when a bird comes in with a fish and when they deliver. They have a very distinctive pattern of delivery. And I also want you to take a look and see if you can tell what type of fish the bird is holding. So let's see if you can tell. He's there on the very right side of the screen holding a fish. All right, does anyone have a guess as to what kind of fish that was? Anyone want to take a stab?
My initial thought is gunnel. What does everyone else think?
I'm second gunnel, but it was a bit sketchy for like the video was a bit pixely, but it looked.
Oh no, okay.
But I like still very helpful. But my guess would have been the same.
Yep, so that is correct. I actually think that was a snake prickleback, but you would definitely record that as a gunnel. It was hanging down really long. Sometimes they bring in fish that are as long as they are. I don't know how the chicks are going to eat that, but so the other thing I wanted you to notice is how the bird took off and did a really big circle around. That is really typical of how they deliver their prey. And so it kind of gives you the heads up. They also often have a second bird that's accompanying them, sometimes a third bird. So when you see them take off, they'll take off sort of in the opposite direction, but it really gives you a good chance to follow them and see where they're going to go. So it's very helpful. It's nice of them to do that for us. And just taking a look at the different prey types, you can see here how gunnels are overwhelmingly the preferred prey, or at least that we observe. Except you can see on Whidbey Island, it's a little bit closer to 50-50, well, not 50-50, 40-40-10. All right, so now we can talk about the actual counting strategies. So three basic types. We have a single observer strategy. I'm not sure that you guys are going to use this strategy. Just based off of what I saw when I was up there, you have these really large bluffs. It's hard for one person to count all of the birds. But at some colonies, they have one person who's the counter. And the reason for that is just consistency. And it's usually a veteran surveyor who's really familiar with the colony and with the birds and how to count them. So, and it's really important too that they're able to really see the entire bluff and all of the birds. It only works when they can do that. And then the second one is additive strategy. So this would work with these larger bluffs where you have one observer watching different parts of the bluff face, maybe an A, B, and C observer. And in this instance, you're only counting the birds that are in your zone. So you'll have to decide on landmarks, who's counting where. It's important that your team communicates and everybody is on board with the counting plan and knows what to do. You're counting ledge sitters, you're counting birds on the beach, any bird that you can see that's part of the colony, that's in your zone, that's who you're counting, and then you're going to add those together. And again, you're not counting the birds that are out in the deeper water and not associating with the colony. So this works the best with these large bluffs and where one person can't see the entire colony. Sometimes colonies kind of go around a corner, or there are certain aspects of the bluff or features of the bluff that make it so you can't see down the entire stretch. And then I imagine this could be a hybrid strategy, could also be one that you might use up in BC. This is where you might have one person counting all of the birds on the water, and then each observer in their own section is adding in birds that are on the bluff, because it's really hard to scan an entire bluff and the water, especially if the birds are moving around. So you would choose the person with the best view of the colony, and that would be the person counting on the water. Of course, on boats, everyone's going to have the same view, so you might want to just choose a person. But I suspect that you guys are going to stick to this, one person per zone type of strategy. You can basically choose the one that works the best for you. And then as long as you're consistent and you stay with that strategy every week, that's what we want you to do, is sort of dial it in and stick with what works the best for your colony. So these, I just wanted to show you what guillemots can look like. They often go through various stages of transition, especially in the spring and in the fall. We sometimes see birds in non-breeding plumage show up in the summer, and they never do turn into breeding plumage. So that one in the bottom left corner is an example of that. Or actually, no, that looks like closer to a juvenile maybe. The one in the bottom right corner is an example of a bird that we saw at the colony in June. And then you might also see these speckled birds as they're kind of going in and out of transition. So just so that you're aware, they might not look like the classic black and white that you're used to. All right, so let's talk about the beach data sheet now. You can find this in our survey toolbox, and I'm going to show that to you in a little bit so you can see where to find it. And in our training, our previous training, Govinda went through an interactive beach data sheet fill out, and unfortunately I don't have her slides. So I just filled one out myself, and so you can see at the top, you're going to put your colony name, the survey date, the start time, that's when you're going to do your first count. And you'll want to have a 15-minute settling period that happens before your start time. So once you get to your colony in the boat and you finally get to the spot where you're going to do your observations, you'll want to have a 15-minute settle period. So that would start at 7:15. And then the actual start time is when you start counting after the birds have settled. And we may have to talk a little bit about settling because some of the boats aren't going to be able to anchor and they're going to be motoring around a little bit. The settling period might be variable, so we'll have to see how that works out for you. But basically, you'll have the first count at 7:30, so that's the start count. The middle count would be at 8 a.m. That's the 12 guillemots, and then at the end at 8:30, that's when the survey's over. You take your final count. So in this case, we had 32 birds, and the tide in feet at the start, that would be at 7:30. And I'm also going to show you how I figure out the tide for the start of the survey. You'll want to record whether it's plus or minus, outgoing or incoming. And then your volunteer time is going to be a combination of all volunteers together, and it includes your travel time. So that's your time from your home all the way to the survey site, the survey itself, and then returning home. And actually, I think, yeah, I forgot that I did a close-up of that. Okay, so for disturbances, you want to record the start time of the disturbance and the end time of the disturbance. So in this case, an eagle flew over at 7:52, and all of the guillemots fled to deeper waters, so they flew off. By 8 a.m., they were returning to normal behavior and floating back into the colony. And so in this case, I put a Y, meaning yes, it did, the disturbance did end before the end of the survey. In the example that you see on the sheet, they have an N there, and they have 9 o'clock, which was the end of the survey hour. That means that the disturbance was ongoing at the end of the survey. So you would write the end of the survey time and no, the disturbance was not over yet. And then we have a general survey note, which I'll talk about here in a second. And then once you fill out the front side, and some of that you can do at home too. You can always fill out some of that information at a different time, but you'll turn your sheet over when you're ready to start recording burrow visits. So you're only recording visits that occurred during the survey hour. You're only recording if the birds disappear completely inside the burrow. And you can record burrow exits, but only if you didn't see the bird enter. So sometimes when you start the survey, you haven't seen any burrow visits, and then one will come out. Then you can record the burrow exit. And then, of course, no ledge sitting. So in our example, burrow N2 had no prey visits to burrows at 7:35, 7:51, and 8:23. And Burrow S3 had a sculpin delivery at 7:53, two gunnel deliveries, one at 7:40 and one at 8:06, and an other or unknown prey type at 8:25. And we like to write as many as we can in one line instead of writing a different entry for each line. It just helps with data entry and making sure you don't miss any deliveries. Yeah, I'll talk about the notes here in a second. So about the notes, we really only want to record information that impacts the data that we're collecting. So if you want to keep a journal, some people want to write down different observations from the morning, which are really nice things to have. But as far as a data standpoint and what is easily traceable in the database, we really just want short and simple notes that tell us something about the data we're collecting. So for example, we had this unknown fish delivery at 8:25, but we actually could see that it was a flatfish. So I might write unknown to S3 at 8:25 was a flatfish or a shiner perch or shrimp, whatever it might be. And then you might also say if you saw a gunnel delivery before the start of the survey, you might write down that you observed a gunnel delivery at 7:25 prior to survey start. And the reason you would write that down is just to let you know, in case you didn't see any burrow visits during the survey, at least it's recorded that there's some kind of breeding activity still occurring, which can be helpful for your coordinators to know, okay, there's still breeding activity happening at this colony, especially at the end of the season. We don't want to close down if there are still birds bringing in prey. So it's helpful to know, and also helpful because you know which burrows you need to watch closely in subsequent surveys. Let's see. And then the other thing here, you'll see under the general survey notes, I made some notes that there was choppy water at the mid count. So anything that could make it difficult to count the guillemots. Sometimes it's fog, it might be choppy water, sun in your eyes, anything that might have made it difficult to count the pigu and could explain sort of an unusual population count. And hopefully, I think I covered everything there. I'm just going to touch really briefly on this burrows not visible protocol. So we have another survey type called burrows not visible. And this is really when you can't, if at a colony you're not able to identify distinct nest sites. So sometimes with a structure or maybe even a cliff face where you can't tell where they're going, maybe your view is obstructed by a rock formation, then you would use this burrows not visible. And the important thing to know about this is that it applies to the entire colony. So you can't mix and match it with a regular survey type. You can't have some distinct burrows and some burrows not visible. It applies to the entire colony. So I would not use this survey type unless we've had a discussion about a particular colony and decided that this is the survey type that we will use for it. So yeah, I don't want to confuse anybody with that. But basically, don't use this. You might see it on the website. Don't use it unless we've had a discussion about it and decided to classify a colony as a burrows not visible colony. All right, so we'll move on to boat surveys, and I appreciate you all being patient with all of this information that I have with you this evening. I know it's a lot. So there are some challenges to boat surveys. Bad weather, for one, the need for backup boats, and then, of course, safety. So always something to think about. Always check the weather report. Check for winds in particular when you go out. We don't want anyone going out if it's not safe to do so. Always have a backup. I think it's also a good idea to have someone else on the boat who can power the boat in case there's an emergency and someone else needs to take over the captain's spot and can get folks back to shore. So this photo is just kind of a funny photo. This is actually a boat that I've surveyed on and we got stuck on a sandbar. So I don't think that's going to happen in BC, but it happens sometimes. Okay, so I kind of touched on this already. Just safety first. We do not want you to be the boat on the bottom. So make sure that you don't have high winds, that there's a life vest accessible for everyone on board, and that you have someone else who could hopefully power the boat if needed. So really the key point of the boat protocol is to avoid causing additional disturbance. The data collection on boats is the exact same as it is with our traditional survey protocol. So we wrote this protocol with the idea of not becoming another disturbance to the birds ourselves. So we achieve this in the way we approach the colony. Down here, we anchor the boat. Obviously, we've discovered this is not going to be possible in BC for many of the colonies, although Remy is looking at ways to possibly put some permanent buoys in place. And then positioning your boat and staying quiet on the boat. So we like to approach the colony slowly, low throttle, no wake speed. No zooming straight into the colony. So as slow and quietly as you can approach the birds, the better. This is, by the way, is the colony we're looking to survey on Valdez Island. If you can, go directly to your observation point. And if you have to cross in front of the colony, just give them a really wide berth. I think from what I saw, that should be pretty easy to do at all of your colonies. And again, when I created this training, it was before I had seen what you guys were dealing with up there with the really deep water. In most cases, it won't be possible to anchor. So we're still trying to figure out the best way to do this. It could be that you will have to motor around, keep the boat motoring. But you'll just want to keep maybe a little bit more distance to avoid disturbing the birds if you're not able to anchor the boat. So what we try to do, and I apologize for all of the writing on this slide, you can either observe from sort of the side of the colony. You can position your boat right in the center, which is what we did over the weekend, because it allows you to see the entire colony, as long as you're not disturbing the birds. As you saw in that video, the birds do that big wind up to deliver. And so you want to make sure that you're not blocking their possible trajectory up to their burrow. If you are too close or you're sitting between them and the burrows, they will carry fish for the entire hour on the water, and they will sometimes abort their deliveries if they're concerned about where you're positioned. So if that happens and you realize that you're a barrier to the birds, you just want to adjust your position at the next survey. Or if you're able to without disturbing them in that same survey, you can. Also make sure that you can see all of the parts of the bluffs and the crevices that you need to be able to observe. And then quiet on the boat. This is us on Saturday, and I think we were being quiet. I think that actually the boat was louder than we were, so maybe we weren't a disturbance, and we were pretty far off from the bluff. But try to maintain quiet on the boat, especially if you're on a smaller speedboat. Your voice carries, and allow the birds to settle after you arrive. And then the secondary point of the boat protocol is just consistency. So you always want to make sure that you have someone who's experienced with the colony and with the survey on the boat, because they'll know where the boat should be positioned during the survey, and they'll be familiar with the bluff face and with the birds. Make sure you're applying the same counting rule week to week. Of course, you're collecting data according to our standard protocol. And boat surveys must only be surveyed by boat from week to week. So this isn't a problem in BC. This is only a problem in Puget Sound, where some colonies were surveying on the beach some weeks and by boat other weeks. We want you to be in the boat every week. All right, so these are some challenges with the rocky cliffs. And I think it was really obvious when we were up there visiting the sites this last weekend. It can be really difficult to see where the birds are going and to also understand if they were actually visiting a nest or if they're just ledge sitting. If you over record no prey visits, then you might skew the data. So we try to distinguish between birds that are just lounging and socializing on the bluff and birds that are actually visiting a distinct crevice or location. So what we really noticed on the weekend is you'll see a pattern of behavior. So birds flying to the same spot on the bluff and actually disappearing into a crack or a crevice. That's probably likely to be an actual nesting spot. And when they're ledge sitting, they might do it in all different places on the bluff. So just look for those patterns. The birds will tell you where they're going. And it may not be completely obvious until they start delivering fish. So I tend to under record no prey deliveries if I'm not sure that they're actually visiting a burrow. And just some tips and tricks. This may not be a problem if you're sitting far away from the birds, but if you're in close, they're very aware that people are there. And you'll see them look at the bluff and look at you, look at the bluff, look at you. If you get the sense that they're feeling anxious, I always try to just kind of avert my eyes, look the other way, pull your hood down, try to make them think that you're not interested in them. And that's usually when they'll decide to deliver their prey. So it's something to try if they're looking anxious. You also want to make sure that you're not only looking through your binoculars. You want to be able to take in the big picture. Otherwise, you will miss activity if you're just really focused in on one or two birds. So use your binoculars sparingly. Use it to verify the prey types or to count the birds, or even to, if you want to verify where a burrow location might be, you can use your binoculars. But just make sure you take them down as well and take in the big picture. Safety first, of course. And this is something we talked about too, the coffee. You can drink coffee before the survey. I will leave that up to your own discretion. You all know your bladders and what you're capable of hanging on to. But if you're someone that has to use the restroom after drinking coffee, just think twice before you go out with a full bladder, because there's no restroom out there. Just something to think about. And then, of course, we want everyone to have a good time out there. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, and I'm actually going to take you to our website. Let's see. I promise we're almost done. All right, so this is our website. It's www.pigeongilmot.org. And let's see, I need to move the Zoom tile so I can see. So what I really want to show you here is this volunteer tab. If you go down to the survey toolbox, this is where we have all of our resources for the survey. We have survey training videos, Survey 123 data system training. None of you have data entry accounts yet, so you won't need to worry about this at this time. When we finally do get all of the colonies input into our fish and wildlife database, we'll be creating accounts for those who will be doing data entry. So then you'll be dealing in this data system training. And then we have our essential survey resources, the protocol, beach data sheet. You can just click on this and print it. Let's see, beach data sheet directions, the survey protocols here. There's also, this is Woodby's prey identification card. I also left some cards with Remy and some of the other folks when I was there. So you can print those out. I like to laminate them. Other things, just interesting things down here that you can kind of browse around. I will also be doing a weekly survey update, so you'll be able to find this here. Right now, there's nothing in it, but as the season goes on, I like to update everybody what's happening. This is where I'll post people's photos and stories from the week, and I will also send this out in an email. In case you haven't watched the 5 training videos already, those are all here. This recording is our SSGN-wide training that we did 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago. Lost track of time. Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to show you with the website. Okay, well, let's see. Make sure I didn't. Okay, I kind of went through the toolbox. Deep zoom. Yes, I would like to show you Deep Zoom. It's a really helpful tool. Oops, I should have kept sharing my. I meant to keep sharing this. Okay, Deep Zoom. So this is just a website, really. It's not even an application. It's deepzoom.com. And what I like about this is it just shows you in real time what the tide is doing. And you can also go backwards and forwards in time. So for example, and there's a map. So you can zoom around the map, find where you are, and then you want to click on the tide station that's closest to where you're surveying. So, oops. Okay. So I'm going to choose this one here, Irvine's Landing. I'm hoping this is the one that was close to Ferny Point. I could be wrong. But you can see over here, there's a tide chart, and it's for 26th of May. So it's actually for today. And down here is a slider. So you can use this to dial in, like let's say we wanted to know what the tide was at 8 a.m. If we did a survey today that started at 8, so we move the slider till we get to 8 a.m. and it was 2 feet and it was outgoing. You can also tab ahead if you want to plan your surveys, or you can go back in time. If you forgot to record the tide on a date, you can go back in time and then grab your slider again and check out the tide that way. So I just find it really easy to use. You can pretty much use whatever tide site you're comfortable with, but I like to show people this because I think it's so easy. Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, that was it. So, of course, I hope that you all have a really fun time when you're out there surveying. It's really the best part is just being out there connecting with the birds. Something about early mornings, and you just realize that we're part of this bigger thing. So, are there any questions out there? I know I was kind of speeding through a lot of information, and obviously Canada is going to be different from the South Sound. So we're also going to be learning as you guys are learning, and you guys will be able to help us sort of dial in some of this information. But are there any questions that cropped up? Yes, Blythe and Fiona.
Blythe here. I have a question regarding the data sheets in the field use, specifically because the initial calling we're surveying with Ferny Point is so big and we're going to have like these different sections.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just speak to like
Oh,
Any ideas about how the data is actually going to be recorded? Like, are we having multiple data sheets or is there one person
right.
like, I know we
Yes.
talked a little bit about it, but I'd just love to hear your
I
thoughts.
am really glad you asked that because I meant to talk about it and I forgot. So thank you. That's perfect. Yes. So there are different ways to do this. Sometimes on boat surveys, especially, you might have one person who's keeping track of the data sheet. And especially if you have a big colony that's really active, you don't want to miss something while you're looking down and writing. So sometimes you'll have one person who's in charge of the data sheet, and then the other people call out what's happening. So someone might say gunnel delivery to A1 at 7:25, and then you would write that down. The other way you can do it is each person can have a data sheet and they can be recording just the information for their section that they're monitoring. And then you'll have a colony lead. So it might be you or Fiona at the Fernie Point colony or Annika. Whoever's going to end up doing the data entry, that person would be the one that would collect all of the data sheets and then combine them into one. So you're only going to submit one compiled data sheet. Yeah. And sometimes you have a little discussion at the end of the survey to make sure, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? Make sure that you got all of the data. So it does sometimes help to have everyone writing down what's happening, but you'll kind of figure out what works best for you. I find on boats, we usually have one person minding the data sheet because we can kind of discuss as we're like in real time. When you have people at different locations, like maybe you had two boats at the same spot, then obviously you can't talk until the end of the survey. But, and then you would want to combine the two data sheets for sure. So.
And Shannon, you were saying in Vicky here, you were saying in an earlier, hi, sorry, I got the time wrong. Anyway,
that's okay.
I got the important part, I think. Do you don't want us to enter the data until we get sort of set up with the data?
Right. So you will not be able to enter data until Washington Fish and Wildlife adds
How about now?
Canada region to their database. So they haven't set that up yet. And we decided that we would probably wait and see just how things go this season before we start adding data to make sure that we know we're going to go forward with the colonies that we're piloting. I can't imagine any reason we would not go forward with the colonies because we've chosen ones that we think will be really conducive to the survey. So yeah, I think towards the end of the season, we'll probably sit down and talk about how we're going to add the colonies and then who the different, we need to know who the data entry people will be because those are the folks that will get their own account. And then I'm going to hold a special training, a small group training just for BC data responsible folks. So we'll go over step by step how to set up the data entry, or hopefully we'll have that set up ahead of time. You'll have the app on your computer or on your phone, and then we'll go through how to do the data entry and then also the quality control.
Okay.
So yeah, I know it was probably a little confusing when you were sitting in the data entry and you you were like, where do I find this app?
I just want to say hi to Blythe too. I sent her a text earlier. Blythe, where are you in the Sunshine Coast?
In Chatlache and Seashelt.
In which?
In Chatlache and Seashelt.
Chatlachen? I don't know that place. Okay.
Yeah. The English name is Seashelt.
Oh, I see. That was the First Nations name. Thank you. And is that where your survey is, close to that?
The survey is up the coast a bit, at an area known as Fernie Point on the tip of Nelson Island.
Oh, on Nelson. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. So you go by boat from Seashell?
We go by boat out of Madeira Park.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, I'll be in touch
Great
when
to
I'm
meet
out
you.
there. You too. Hi. Thanks.
Let's see, any other questions? I think too, I mean, really the best way to figure out the survey is just to be out there and to do it. So everything's going to take a little bit of dialing in once you get there, figuring out how close you want to be to the bluff, since you're going to be in boats. I actually think Blythe and Fiona and Vicky, we could probably go in a little bit closer than we were, especially in the smaller boats. We were in a really big boat at Fearney Point, so we kind of hung back a little bit, but you want to make sure that you can see what the birds are doing and also that you can identify the prey. So I think in the smaller boats, you can get a little bit closer to the bluff, and then the birds will tell you if you're too close. So if you do come in and they seem to be anxious and avoiding burrow visits, then you'll know that you need to back up a little bit.
Okay.
But generally, they're not terribly disturbed by boats unless they're just cruising right through the middle of the birds. So I'm guessing it won't be too much of a problem.
Oh, I see Madeira Park. Okay, cool.
And then Vicky, I don't know if you saw Erin is in the training as well. She's the one we connected to today. So hopefully you guys will be able to connect here in the near future.
And where are you located, Erin?
Oh, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. It's my first time using Zoom, so technology.
You're doing well.
My parents have a place on the north end of Gabriola, pretty close to the ferry. But then I also spend quite a lot of time in Silva Bay, and that's where we keep our vessels and stuff. So we have our own boat, and my partner has a boat as well. So
Great.
Lots of boats.
Okay, well, if you want to get together, I can pass on what I learned from the, trip with Shannon and Remy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just
Yeah. And I
for
saw in the email that some of our sites might require multiple boats, so definitely ready and willing to help with that.
Great.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
What kind of boat do you have?
At the moment, there's which would be the most appropriate boat would be a 14-foot thermoglass. So it has a 50 horsepower Yamaha and 4 comfortable seats as well.
Great. Okay.
So
Super.
enclosed fiberglass, not an open tinny or anything. It's
Yeah. So Shannon, are you thinking that Erin might do so we found 3 colonies.
Mm-hmm.
They're all along the same part of Valdez, but separate colonies. Are you thinking, Shannon, that Erin might take on one of those other colonies?
I think it could be possible. I think it will depend on how many additional volunteers you can recruit. And then if you could take Erin out there sometime and maybe check out the colonies with her and then decide what you think is feasible.
Okay.
The other option is to potentially do one of the larger colonies and you could both then do the larger colony together. So I'll sort of leave it to you, and maybe even we can bring Remy back into the conversation now that we know we have additional boats possible. And if there are enough surveyors, yeah, we may rethink which colonies you would like to do. But I'll leave it up to you guys.
Great. Well, that's so great that Erin's come on board. I'm leaving for a camping trip to Seashell Peninsula on Friday for a week. So if you get together, probably wouldn't happen till I get back, but I could fit it in if you wanted to go over there and you want to meet with me before I leave on Friday, just for a short visit, I can explain some stuff. But if you're just going to wait, if you want to wait until second week of June, that's another option.
I'll absolutely get in touch. I have only an appointment from 12 to 1 tomorrow, but then before or after that or on Thursday morning could work as well.
Okay.
Because if we're supposed to start by the first week of June, there's not that much time before then, so it might be good to try and get it done before.
And do you know those waters? Like, are you familiar with going through Gabriola Passage and
Very much. I've been a fishing guide for the last 2 years.
Hey.
And I also want to mention, this is a pilot year, so if you have to start a little bit later or you're only able to do, partial observations through the summer at some of those other sites, that's okay. I think just gathering the information. If you can do one site solidly, that's probably ideal. And then, if you're not able to bring another colony on right away, that's okay. We'll do the best we can this season, and any information that we can get, we'll be ready for next season to really, have an entire season at some of those other colonies. So
I'm sort of thinking, Shannon, I'd like to do the site one, the northern site, and do that really well. But if Erin can come on board and she could do the count for the whole cliff that we were talking about,
yeah,
and sort of be our support person, because maybe 2 boats would be good even for a site one.
Right, that's true.
Unless we
It
get
can't
more.
hurt.
But
Yeah, so maybe we can continue having a side conversation too, and we can keep discussing the ins and outs, especially after you've both been out there and sort of have an impression and have had a chance to talk it over.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be in touch, Erin.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Great.
Any other questions out there? Oh, I see Remy is on here now too. Hi, Remy.
Hi guys, sorry I'm on the ferry.
That's okay, we'll forgive you.
Shannon, I popped this in the chat, but just wanted to mention, I know we had done some emailing regarding for colony leads. There is a monthly meeting that's held for Washington, so I just didn't know if you wanted to talk about that at all.
Sure. Yes, we do have a monthly meeting. It's the first Wednesday of every month at 5 p.m. It's really our business meeting, so probably not all volunteers want to come for that. It's really for the main coordinators. Anyone who wants to pop in is welcome to, but it's sort of our business meeting, so we kind of tailor it towards the regional leads and the main coordinators. So I send out an agenda every month and the meeting link for that. But yeah, if you want to just pencil in on your calendar the first Wednesday of every month at 5 p.m., that's when we will have it. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I know there's so much. I feel like I'm just giving you a fire hose of information right now. And especially in May. May is just crazy with all of the trainings and everything, but it will settle down and you'll just be able to enjoy the survey next month. So yeah, but continue to send questions my way if anything comes up. There will be lots of gray areas, things you're not sure about, especially once the survey starts. You might find yourself questioning some things. So take notes, write down questions, and send them my way. And hopefully I can help you work through whatever the problem is. So yeah, I imagine we'll both be figuring it out together. Because you guys definitely have a different situation than we have down here, which Remy's telling me now that we're actually the outliers down here in the South Sound. We're the ones that are weird. So, but this is good. This is really going to expand our knowledge of the guillemots and how they're breeding and nesting. So it's awesome to be able to have this additional data. Any other questions? All right. Well, I think we will wrap it up then. I'm sure everybody's hungry and ready for dinner, so I will let you all go. But thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your evening to attend the training. So I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful season. And I absolutely cannot wait to hear all of the stories. I know you're going to have some funny stories of what the guillemots are doing. So yeah, can't wait. Can't wait till I can be up there again too. A wonderful place. All right. Well, take care all.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you. Good to see everyone.